I've fallen in love. I don't have any desire to drive a different car. It smells of the leather, the feel of the steering wheel. I think it's almost art. It's wonderful. My name's Paul Kitchen, and I drive a 1977 Aston Martin V8 Series 3. I think I've always loved cars. As I was growing up, I was exposed to all kinds of cars, but most notably Astons, because my dad is a gearhead.
When I was a kid, growing up in England, my grandfather bought a Lagonda. And I would go visit him, and all of a sudden we were riding in this absolutely incredible piece of equipment. He crashed the car a couple of times, and both times it had to go back to the factory. I went with him and watched them work on it. But it was always, kind of in the family. When I got old enough to have a car, it was always a car I wanted.
My dad tried as best as he could financially to keep a fun car around. I have very fond memories of rumbling along in a 22-foot Lagonda on the way to soccer practice. There came a time that I decided I wanted to get a classic car. I saw a 1970 Chevelle, and I showed it to my dad.
I didn't know anything about Chevelles, so I kind of discouraged him, and I suggested that he buy an Aston. The Aston V8 was supposed to be the high end of British sort of V8 motoring at the time. In '77 they made, I think, only 37 of these cars because of the company's financial trouble, so they were making less than one a week.
So I wasn't convinced. We drove by the window of a dealership, and it had the same make and model in silver with a red interior and a manual gearbox. When I saw what it could look like, I knew I had to one day own, even if it would be years into the future. It turned out, after we test drove it, we couldn't afford it. My dad kept looking, and we came to a man, and he had a very, very sad Aston Martin in a barn, and it was purple. My dad took it for a test drive, and we almost had a wreck there because the brakes didn't work.
But it kind of fit the bill. I mean, he was a teenager, he was going to run it around, it was not going to get treated well, and it was something that we could work on.
At the time, Astons weren't as expensive as they are today. I was able to save up money, having some odd jobs through high school, to split it with my dad. Over the next year or 2 years, I think the person that drove it the most was the tow truck driver, because it was towed probably more often than it was driven. I kept it with a boombox on the front seat. The front seats had stuffing coming out of them. I had it through high school, and we'd all pack in the back of it. I remember the door to this day doesn't close quite correctly because someone tripped and fell, and the whole thing's made of aluminum, so pulled the hinge down. It still doesn't close correctly. But it was about the senior year of high school. As I was driving, the car caught on fire. And I opened it up, and lo and behold, there were 4-foot flames. And I started running, and then I realized that it came with a fire extinguisher. So I ran back, risked life and limb to save it because I wasn't going to let it burn down.
It actually wasn't very bad. Paul managed to put it out, so it had just basically burned the wiring off and made a mess of the interior.
My father, Jonathan, took over from there and really made it into what it is today.
Once we did the restoration and I started putting a lot of money into it, I cashed him out of it, and so it kind of became our car.
Before it was restored, I don't think I appreciated how wonderful it was. After, I was a bit scared of it because it's pretty immaculate, but at the same time, because of how beautiful it is now, it is just an absolute treat. I think it embodies kind of what I'd like to be more than what I am. Just pick up some leaves and the instrument panel is on. I think my future plans for the road car are to continue to enjoy it with my dad. It's really something that we bonded over.
We sometimes fight over it, don't be fooled. I mean, we tussle as to who gets to drive it, or when it gets driven, or where it gets parked.
We talk about it endlessly. We buy each other books on it. Sometimes we'll have a late night call. I found a new winged badge on eBay, should I bid on it?
It really has been a great father-son experience, at least from my point of view, to have something that you can work on together and play with.
I'm very, very grateful that I got that opportunity to take what was a part of his history and make it part of my history.